Wow, that's a nice intro, Selena. Thank you. Semper Fi to all the Marines out there, and what's up to the rest of you? I've been thinking a lot about what I wanted to talk to you about today. Of course, the folks at Common Defense were very professional and very thorough and laying out some very specific talking points, and I looked at them and I thought, those are really nice. But here's the bottom line. I just want to emphasize something about how big of a deal it is, the battle that we're engaged in right now, and how incredibly important every single one of you personally are to the future of this country, to the future for my kids, and if they decide to have kids, their kids, because that's where kids are right now. I don't know how much more privileged every single one of us can be than to be looking back at 250 years ago and knowing that a group of folks who would come to be identified as Americans got together and decided that power was no longer going to shift from one to the next by violence or by heredity. It was going to be through the consent of the governed. It was going to be the people themselves who decided who their leaders were, what their future was going to look like. Together, the folks who actually were doing the work in the fields, in the mines, in the fisheries, in the forests, the folks who were actually making it happen were the ones who really mattered. That's what you represent. It's not just the notion that a pluribus unum is out of many states one, it's out of many people one. And we find ourselves engaged in a battle against our own selves for the notion that every one of those 50 stars is as important as every single one of those 50 stars. Because the last time I looked at Old Glory, none of those stars were painted blue, none of those stars were painted red. They're all representative of the idea that we are all in this together. That's what you are fighting for. You're fighting for the notion that up until 250 years ago, humanity was to a great degree just kind of survival of the fittest. And after that declaration, after that moment in time, people just like you, engaged in battles just like the ones you're engaged in, moved us to the next phase, literally the next phase of humanity, of the species. When we look at it from that perspective, we feel the weight, not just of American history, but of human history bearing down on us. And well, we should take that responsibility personally, every single one of us. And that's why you are so valuable as leaders in your own states and in your own places. Because over these last 250 years, I will challenge you to take that tiniest sliver of human history and ask yourselves, some of you are students of history, ask yourselves, when has there ever been a collection of human beings who have had such an enormous influence on the advancement of the species? Of the species, folks, not just of the continent, not just of the nation, but of the whole of humanity. Think about how we have organized and what that particular organization has done. And we came together with our number one strength backing us, and that strength being diversity. Now, some people will say diversity can be problematic, especially if you put an E and an I behind it, because some people just don't understand the notion. The diversity that I'm talking about isn't different people from, for example, different nations of origin, or different languages, or different religions, or creeds, or different skin tones. The diversity that I'm talking about is the diversity of ideas and perspectives that are informed by all of the rest. The diversity of ideas and perspectives that move us as an organized society to the point where we have to figure out what decision to make if that diversity is cooking right? How do we get to phase 2 if we've got all these decisions to make, if we've got all these ideas? We make those decisions through elections. The notion of elections, the notion of the vote, is the mechanism behind the idea of consent of the governed. You cannot give your consent if you cannot vote. You have no role as an American in what made us independent in the first place from tyranny if you cannot vote. You are protecting and fighting for the single most important American idea that ever came about. And through that diversity of ideas, metered and monitored by elections, what have we done, America? What have we done when it comes to advancements in science, in music, in literature, in architecture, in design, in industry, in technology, in music, in law, in medicine, in education? This nation and its diversity of ideas has, through that diversity, blossomed humanity into something that would be unrecognizable just 250 years ago. The enormity of that thought is a little intimidating. But that is our inheritance. What do you do when you inherit something so valuable? What do you do when you are charged with protecting something so incredibly, literally earth-shattering? You protect it. You protect it with every ounce of your being. And right now, the threats, unlike in elections past, which were mentioned, the threats are not coming from outside. The threats are inside. The bad guys are inside the castle. We have a chief executive officer of the United States of America who you can disagree with when it comes to a reflecting pool or tariffs. You can disagree with him when it comes to trans rights or the environment. You can disagree with him on one or two other points. But the only thing you can't disagree with him on is elections. And that's the one single thing that organizes this particular society that is so incredibly important. What you are fighting for is the single most fundamental idea. And the fact that you're spending time here to do that with the next several months, several years of your lives is something that you ought to kind of think about for a minute. And maybe give yourselves a little bit of grace. Because we come down on ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we don't think we're doing enough. Sometimes we don't think we're trying. But you're here. You're taking your time and your energy and you're making it happen for your fellow citizens. That's what service is about. That oath that we all took doesn't have an expiration date. And you are continuing the training that each one of you experienced in your own way. Mine started with yellow footprints. Yours may have started, I don't know, in the Air Force, I think you had a spa day and, some other thing. It was like a crab dinner for the sailors out there. I'm just messing around. The weight of this notion is what should compel us and move us forward. And it's what we should take enormous pride in. This is why I wake up happy every morning as a warrior in this battle. And speaking of happiness, isn't it amazing, as so many of us saw last night reflected, isn't it amazing that we got to a spot in this country where it had to take the rest of the world coming over here and telling us how friggin' awesome we are to rediscover a little bit of that joy? Folks, when this country was founded, when these ideas were starting to pop up, it wasn't sentimentality, it wasn't dates and names in books. It was the notion of the way that we wanted to live our lives. It was the way we wanted to be each day and raise our children and worship if that was our thing. It was how we wanted to serve one another. That infrastructure is all built around that single notion of elections, because consent of the governed is the foundational principle of this nation. And under the rule of law, therefore, we've decided to make this happen. You are it. You are it. Like, this is it. So we ask ourselves then, what's next? What is that call to action that we have? There's two words in my mind that I've been sharing with folks all over, not just the state of Arizona, but everywhere else that I go. Two simple words that many of you have known well, but perhaps didn't own. Those two words embody what it is that we need to do next and how. We need to be uncomfortable. We need to be uncomfortable. It's never comfortable if you're a suffragist to be dragged by the hair through the streets because you want the right to vote. Don't tell me it was comfortable crossing over that Edmund Pettus Bridge and getting your head bashed in. Many of you have experienced discomfort in deserts and in other places and climes. You know what it means to serve, unlike so many of your fellow countrymen. You know what it means to be uncomfortable. Now is the moment to push that idea to the next level. And the folks that you train and those who you lift and those ideas you fight for should put you in a place where you understand and embrace that suck. Be uncomfortable. The three-word same thing is embrace the suck for the Marines out there and everybody else. You know that. I just had to put it in there. But this is the deal, folks. And I couldn't be more proud to have been invited here to talk to you. Because you are literally on the front lines. I'm a policy guy. I could talk to you about, the difference between substantive due process and procedural due process when it comes to certain things that are happening in the law. I could talk to you about, wait time metering and all kinds of other equipment stuff. Like, I'm a technician in the world of election administration. I get the policy stuff, not just from the ground level at the county where I was at in Maricopa, but at the policy level at the Secretary of State's office and nationally. You guys are doing it door to door. That's a different kind of fight, but it's the same general war that we're fighting against right now. And it's terribly disconcerting when we see and hear our own fellow countrymen say, well, maybe democracy has run its course. What they're basically saying is, well, the great experiment was a failure. When you think about this country as an experiment, what it's been classified as, because it was new. Nobody ever did it like this. We're the first ones. And we're, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I think everybody does, this Constitution is the longest lasting Constitution in a democracy that exists today. Every other form of government that is not hereditary or violent is newer than ours. We've lasted this long through a civil war, through disease and pestilence, through natural disasters, through economic depressions. And we've always done it through the grit of folks like you, people who actually stepped up and made it happen. Own that. Give yourself grace for that. And understand how important you are individually in this. Now, former service members like me sometimes have a hard time giving ourselves a little credit. I remember the old saying I learned in the Marine Corps. When somebody would thank me for my service, my immediate instinctual response is, I get thanked twice a month. Okay, that's kind of rough and tumble, grr. But we need to understand where we are so that we can appreciate it, we can pass it down, and we can do the best that we can with it for our fellow Americans. That's service. It's the undying commitment that we made when we raised our right hand. It is what this country needs right now. You are the antidote. Make it happen every day as you go through the entire country. Know that there are a lot of us out there backing you up out there at those doors, and the folks that work for you out there at those doors. You're making it happen for all of us. We're going to continue to back you up from where we are I could not be more proud to be here. I could not be more proud to be among you as a veteran. And I could not be more proud to be excited about the U.S. not getting their ass kicked on the 1st of July, because we got to win this World Cup one way or another. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll take some questions in a minute. I appreciate you. Don't stand up. Don't. Yeah. Don't. Any questions? Anything's out there? I know I got a little ethereal and philosophical. You can yell if you want. Oh wait, they're recording, so use the mic for that. Thank you.
So I know that a lot of us are really concerned about, talking about election protection and protecting democracy, and we hear the threats from the White House to interfere with this coming election. I guess my questions are one is how concerned are you, and two, what do you think we can be doing to get ready for that potential threat?
Well, the threats are numerous, but the notion of the threats is the idea. It's not whether or not someone's going to show up at the polling places. It's not whether or not the mail's going to get through. It's not whether or not somebody's going to show up on some list and be prevented from. Those threats are the threat. The idea that we are pearl clutching, wasting time talking about these things. The idea that folks are getting dissuaded potentially from voting in the first place. That is voter suppression. The threats are the problem. Can they possibly manifest? I mean, anything's possible. The idea, however, isn't to shrink away from it, because what have we always done in the face of a challenge? Hell, I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I'll bet a lot of you decided to sign up during a time of conflict. Many of you probably fought in actual combat. I'm not a combat veteran, by the way, and God bless those of you who are. The idea is they want us scared. They want those threats to manifest in voter suppression. What can you do? Pay attention to the 5 pillars that I've heard mention of. I'm not going to pretend like I know what the hell they are, because I was at lunch and a lot of you don't know either, but that's okay. Pay attention to those 5 pillars and execute. That's what you can do. Do what you can do. Don't get caught up in the notion that, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough. Oh my gosh, I'm not this and this. This is a team effort, folks. There's 340-something million people in this country. Give yourself grace for doing what you're doing, because it's a damn fine thing that you're doing in the first place. It's absolutely necessary in the second place. And if you focus on the work that's in front of you, the rest of the team is going to come along. I can promise you that, because that's how this country has always worked. Do you think we had factories that were created specifically to build bombers and battleships in the dockyards on December 7th, 1941? Do you think the mightiest military machine that ever launched against anyone in the world was ready to go when Pearl Harbor was bombed? No, we created that shit out of whole cloth. We dedicated enormous amounts of our industry to sending food overseas. And Americans themselves started farming their own food in their own yards. We can do this. We've done this kind of thing before. This time, it's not going to take building new factories. It's not going to take victory farms in your yard. It's going to take getting off your dead ass, registering, and voting. And that's what you can do, is make sure that Americans know the next call to action isn't about blood, sweat, and tears. It's about forms and filling in bubbles. That's what we can do. Yeah. And then I got one up front here. Yes, sir.
So a subject near and dear to my heart. Arizona's kind of in the potential eye of the storm, because you're close to the border. You got picked on the last time, 2024 and 2020.
Did we? I don't remember. Everything's been smooth sailing.
And, there's all kinds of threats, but the idiot 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue could very well decide that he's going to try and deploy ICE and CBP to polling places in Arizona, because you seem to be a likely target. So I'm not necessarily sure whether I want to ask, what are your plans in case that happens, as much as, are you at least planning to do something in case that happens?
Well, yeah, because I can see and I can hear and I have a pulse, and so yes, and the as you call him, idiot in on Pennsylvania Avenue, which thank you for your generosity and kindness, sir. Again, this goes back to the question of threats. Yeah, absolutely. We're working very closely with the Attorney General, with the Governor's office, with local elections officials, with law enforcement at the state and county level, and municipal level, of course, as well. Here's the thing: we're not certain what's going to happen, but we're also not certain that the church lady's going to show up at 5 a.m. with the keys to open up the polling place in the first place. We're also not certain that the power's going to stay on. We're also not certain that there's going to be gas in the delivery trucks to make sure those extra ballots show up. We're also not certain about. See, election administration is very similar to military operations. You got to be ready for a whole boatload of contingencies. And you also got to be ready for those things you haven't anticipated yet. I was once quoted in the New York Times as saying, we're ready for everything but Godzilla. We've got to be ready. We don't have a choice. Now, how's it going to manifest? What's it going to look like? We certainly don't know if it does. But the notion of the concern that is reflected is the same as your colleague over here, is that notion that I want us to consider. The idea is for us to be afraid. We are prepared. We are going to push forward. And by the way, eye of the storm adjacent, I don't know which storm you're looking at. We are in the middle of the eye of the storm. With all nods over to our friends in Georgia, like Arizona's been in the middle of it since day one. We are the election denial hotbed. We put the AZ in crazy. Like this is who we are. And so I want to let you know, yes, we have made the appropriate plans. Yes, we are fully cognizant of the possibility that there will be disruptions on election day. And no, we don't know what it might look like if it actually manifests in the first place. And to be honest with you, I'm not too sure that it's gonna. I'm just not too sure that it's gonna. Because I think that what's gonna happen across the entire nation, the absolute maelstrom, both literal and theoretical, of defeats that your good friend in the White House's buddies are going to suffer across the country, especially when we're looking at a whole bunch of really important candidates across the country that are going to win. I think the overwhelming victories that we're going to see are going to kind of quiet down any of the questions and any of the doubts. And we've got amazing candidates who are veterans as well. Kate Connolly in New York. I think it's New York. She used to be with CISA. Was a good friend, is a good friend. Joanne Mendoza down in Arizona is CD6. She's amazing, a Marine Corps drill instructor. Like just being a drill instructor isn't badass enough. I think we're going to see major victories, and I think the message is going to be super loud and clear, and I think they're going to have a hell of a hard time taking us in a different direction. And my number one answer to them all the time is, when I see the criticisms, is, okay, if our elections are so corrupt, tell me about 2024. Tell me about 2024, when this liberal Democrat was the Secretary of State in Arizona. Who presided over the Electoral College that gave Donald Trump his 11 votes from Arizona? Who presided over all of those elections where we saw a 1-seat minority in the state house and the state senate turn into a 2- and a 3-seat majority for the Republicans, where they gained ground? Was that election unfair? Were there problems there? And if you don't see your own hypocrisy in that, then you can shut the fuck up. Like that's the answers. Yes, sir.
So I live in Oklahoma.
Sorry about that.
That's my choice. We just had primaries a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And we had 26% voter turnout. General election turnout in Oklahoma is not much better. In fact, the biggest turnout we had was when medical marijuana was up for a vote.
Surprise, surprise.
And a lot of people
And they say those folks are lazy. Get out of town.
So, I mean, we're looking at potential voter suppression. That's one thing. What tips do you have, if you have any, for getting people to realize that voting is your reflection of consent of the governed, and yet you should just not stay home? How do you tell people to not stay home?
Well, look, I hear this in a lot of different forms, like especially when it comes to younger voters. How do you convince younger voters that voting actually matters to them? I don't know what to tell these people, these young kids. I can't relate to them. I didn't live in a world where I had to have live shooter drills in my elementary school. I didn't grow up in a world where, I was thinking that by the time I was going to be 40 that Miami would be underwater. I didn't grow up where I lost 2 years of my life having to learn like this because of a pandemic. I don't know what specifically to tell people, but there's a couple of things that I know have resonated when I hear occasionally folks saying, well, I don't get into politics. Okay. With the young people, let me do that, we'll finish that thought first. With the young people, I listen to them because their concerns are different. Their worldview is different. And it's always important to learn from folks who have a different worldview than you do, because guess what? Even us Marines don't know everything. I know, it's a hard self-admission, but I'm on the path to recovery. We got to listen to people and listen to what they have to say and then let them know why some of their problems could be addressed by good governance, particularly young people. They can connect the dots. They're really smart. They're really, really smart. But when it comes to folks who've been around for a little while and they say, I just don't get into politics, I just kind of like, oh, well, I know you don't get into politics, but your gas tank does. And your grocery bill does. And your health insurance does. And the educational quality of that kid next door who's going to be, the medical technician eventually when 911 gets called on your ass does. Those things matter. And you might be interested in those things because politics cares about that. So you might not be interested in politics, brother, but politics is interested in you. Now that's a little heavy, but that's the reality.